It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Pastor Paul Lavino right here.
Nice to meet you and to be here today.
Thanks for coming. We had your son was the first one brave enough to come on the show. Everybody's like, what? What are you talking about? I don't see a website. And I said, well, we're building the content. We're going to launch it around Halloween. But your son, good at Ryan Visconti. And then when he was, we were podcasting him, he married your daughter Amy.
Absolutely.
And or would you say he married your daughter Amy or took Amy off your hands?
He stole her from me.
Oh, so she was a good catch then.
He broke my heart.
So Pastor Paul Lavino and his wife Beth Lavino, their Generation Church right up here up the street. I drive by it every day at the corner of the Elliot Warner Loop. Ahwatukee is basically two loops: the Elliot Warner Loop, short loop, and then the long loop, Ray Chandler. So he's right at the bottom of the Elliot Warner Loop, right where it hits Equestrian Center. You started that church in 1991. I started my dental office in 87, and you were right 4 years after me, so that's a long time. How long's your church been there?
We've been on that corner since 1994, but we started the church in 1991.
So 2017, now you can see how dumb I am. I have to use...
I think it's 26 years tomorrow.
26 years tomorrow, and I'm 30 years next Thursday.
Wow. Congratulations.
And you started in the Grace Inn, and
Yes.
I'm trying to remember Mr. Grace's first name. He's a friend, patient for years. Amazing man.
No, Amazing Grace, maybe.
Oh, Amazing Grace. There you go. They should call it the Amazing Grace Inn. And Ahwatukee didn't even have an exit.
Right.
So he was the one, it was his money to build that overpass.
I didn't know that.
So that's why to this day, that's not part of Phoenix. That's Maricopa County. Because when Phoenix annexed Ahwatukee, they tried to annex where the Grace Inn is, the old McDonald's,
Right.
the Circle K, and he said, whoa. He goes, when I asked Phoenix to build that bridge, you said, no, I paid for that bridge with my whole money. You can give me my money back? He took him to court, and the court said, Phoenix, you can't tax that guy. You didn't even help him build the overpass. So he doesn't pay Phoenix taxes, and that's Sedgwick County, which you need to know if you're at 51st in LA and you call the police, the sheriff will show up.
Absolutely.
And but what an amazing man, and now he's gone,
Right.
and now it's 4 seasons.
Yes.
So tell us. I want to start off with first. How did you get from being born to Grace Inn in 1991? Tell us your journey.
It's a long story. Part of the story was I was adopted when I was a little baby from a family in Twin Falls, Idaho. Was my birth mom and to parents in Chicago. And actually, that story was in the Ahwatukee News this last October. I found my birth mom. So that's a whole nother story, but it's a pretty amazing story.
Well, I got to hear it right now.
I mean,
so you were born.
I'm telling you, I was crying on the airplane when I was going to meet her. It was such an emotional thing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So your mom was.
She was in Twin Falls, Idaho.
I assume she was 18.
She was 24, and she was married. But she was separated. She had an affair with another guy who was married, and back then, obviously, that was probably never a good thing, but it was really a horrible thing back then. So she moved to Chicago to where her brother lived, and placed me up for adoption. Well, it wasn't until 5 years ago when my dad passed away. I always knew I was adopted, had a wonderful life. And I found the certificate of adoption in their safety deposit box, and it said in there that baby boy Bauer was born on January 23rd, 1955. Birth mom, Edith Bauer of Twin Falls, Idaho. I had never heard that name before in my life, and I got so excited, and so I started all this searching. All I found for like 3 years was Edith Bauer, Twin Falls, Idaho, class of 1947, Twin Falls High School. And for almost 5 years that I couldn't find anything else. But in 1 weekend, it all clicked, all fell together. I called her up, and I went the next day.
Well, tell us how it clicked and fell together. What was the second piece of data?
I found, this happened within about 3 months. I found my birth father's, her name was Edith Bauer, but she was married in high school. So her middle name was Nielsen, Edith Nielsen Bauer. I found a divorce certificate in 1953 with a Wayne Bauer and Edith Bauer. This is all on the internet. And then I start searching him out, and I found out that he was a Mormon gentleman, and he wrote this like 2-page history used for the church for some purpose, and it was the story of his marriage to Edith Bauer. And so anyway, I learned
Edith
a lot.
Nelson Bauer.
Yeah, so I found out about that they were divorced, and then I Googled him some more, and then I found out that he had 12 children, and he had 3 wives. He was married to Edith, and then with no kids that he knew of, and then he was remarried again and had some children. Then his second wife died, and then he was remarried to another lady, and they had more children. So to make a very long story short, I got the phone number of my birth mother's first husband's third wife, and on a Saturday I called her, and she gave me my birth mom's phone number.
Still up in Twin Falls?
Yes.
So he wasn't married to 3 people
80
at the same time as
No, 89 years old. And she received
Your
me.
mom's 89?
Yeah. And
So you're 62?
I'm 62.
And she was 89 because
Yeah.
she was...
It's just an amazing story. It's all now. You can Google my name and read the whole story.
So she was 27 when she had you.
27, I guess. Yeah. She's 89. I'm 62. Whatever.
So
the
did you
math
fly
is.
up there and go talk to her?
The next day? It was on the news up there. It's been on the news here. It's been in the Ahwatukee news. Great story.
So what was it like?
Very surreal. But for me, I told her to her face. I said, Edith, I had a great life, but there's always one little piece of my puzzle missing, and you're the piece, and I'm so glad I found you. And without any prompting, she said, I wish I would have never had to give you up. I've regretted it every day, and she started crying, and I love you. I mean, what more could you want? I just
Wow.
talked to I have a half sister and a half brother, and we look alike, and they've received me, and it's been awesome.
Wow. Now where is Twin Falls, Idaho?
It's in Idaho. It's Twin Falls. There's 2 falls up there. It's between Boise.
Okay.
It's about 70 miles, 80 miles, like southeast of Boise.
Now did you flew there?
When I flew there, I flew into Salt Lake City after church on a Sunday, and when I went through I was crying when I went through security. I got on the airplane, and I thought, if this was a movie, this would be the time that it would be the most emotional part, because I was bawling, crying. It was just unbelievable, very emotional. My wife called me.
Pent up emotions.
Yeah, my wife called me on the way to the airport. She said, you seem a little stressed out. I said, Beth, I think I'm just in shock. But it's been great. It's been really great.
Well, I'm telling you, that drive from Phoenix, Idaho is the most beautiful drive.
is.
You know,
Yeah.
10% of Phoenix is Canadians. And for 30 years, I've heard snowbirds, and they come down here, and I say, well, do you have like a separate car here, or what do you do? They go, oh my God, driving from Calgary or Edmonton or Winnipeg to Phoenix is just the highlight
Right.
of spending the winter in Phoenix.
Wow.
I mean, it's literally, quote, God's country. You know what I mean? It's
so,
just...
so I drove from Salt Lake. Now what's really amazing is a lot of her family, my birth mom's family, is very high up in the Mormon church. They've been so kind
Edith
to
is a
me.
Mormon.
Yeah, she was not really practicing, but like the third wife, she's like one of the main organists in Temple Square. I have a cousin and her husband are in Russia right now, and they're attorneys for the Mormon church. So it's really kind of cool, and they've been very open and welcoming to me, and I'm an Assembly of God Christian pastor, so it's quite amazing.
Well, you know what? That opens up. That's a perfect segue. That's a beautiful story. And it's a perfect segue to what I've heard for 30 years. You know, when you're a dentist in the community, people are asked for referrals to, you know, dermatologists, doctors, this and that. But a lot of people, you know, Ahwatukee didn't exist hardly when you got
Right.
here. How many people were here?
20,000.
20,091.
Right, and
when you
there
started.
were church buildings, the Lutheran church building, the Catholic church building. They didn't have their big auditorium now, and I think there was that's about it.
So there were only 3 churches in?
Right.
And at the Lutheran church, at that time, it was Pastor Don.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, and he's oh my God,
He's
a great
Mr.
guy.
Ahwatukee.
He's a guy. Can I tell you the story about Pastor Don?
Yes.
When I opened up my office, I thought, it's not going to be dentist centric. It's going to be patient centric. It's not going to be all about me. It's going to be about the patient. So I opened 7 days a week. And he came over to my practice Monday morning and he said, "Can I see that young little new 25-year-old dentist, Howard?" And so we sat down and we were talking and everything. He said, "That's the Lord's Day. And your staff doesn't need it. Your patient doesn't need it." But anyway, he was the one who told me, "Don't open Sunday." He says, "You're married. You're having kids. You got a family." He says, "You don't work 7 days a week." He said that was crazy. And I thought,
Good for him.
I thought, well, I'm not going to argue with him. But it opens up a great segue question because I've heard this more than a million times. People have their faith, and it seems like it's turning more to like spiritual, all this, because they don't like the legalities. Like so many Catholics have said, well, I can't go to Catholic Church because they say birth control is a mortal sin, you'll burn in hell for eternity. I use birth control, so does my sister, and even my mom does. And then they marry a Mormon. And they're saying, well, there's all these structural legality things.
Right.
It's kind of like, I'll never forget, my oldest sister's a Catholic nun, and they found more scriptures. This is years back. So, we think of scriptures, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but they found more. And some of these scriptures, everybody was saying it's controversial because one said Jesus had a brother, and one said this, and one said that. And my sister, I said, well, you're a nun. What do you think about that? And she goes, doesn't bother me. I mean, those are just legal details. Who cares if Jesus has a brother or if he got married and had a kid? I mean, so what would you counsel to someone who says, well, I've been in church 10 years because I was raised Catholic, but I use birth control and I don't believe it's a mortal sin, and my husband and he's another faith and he doesn't want to go back there because of some rule. Do you understand what I'm saying? Well,
first of all, a lot of churches have rules, and I think a lot of churches get in trouble because their rules are extra biblical. And like in the Bible, I'm sure you can't find where you shouldn't use birth control, and you can't find, say, like a priest shouldn't get married. There's a lot of different man-made rules, and that's where people get in trouble.
And they forgot the two most important rules,
which is
brush twice a day for 2 minutes and floss before bedtime. Why is that not in the Bible?
I don't know. But what are the two most important? Is to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. Those are the most important. And so I think what's important is that you can find a church, a place to worship, and it's not the name on top of it that's important. It's important that when you go there, that you feel like you're receiving something, that you can give something, obviously, to the community, but also that you're receiving something. And I'm very clear on, there isn't one church out there that with that name on it that you get guaranteed to go to heaven or something. It's a relationship with God. We, as Christians, we believe that it's through Jesus Christ. We have a relationship with God through what Jesus did. And going to a church doesn't guarantee anything. It's just like, it doesn't change you either. I've walked into my garage almost every day of my life, and I've never turned into a car. But it's the relationship that you have with God that's most important, not the name of the church.
And I've gone to Lifetime 3 or 4 times a week for 10 years. Look at me. I'm a mess. I mean, so
we're all a mess. Do you know where liars go?
Where?
My church.
Liars?
They go to my church.
What does that mean?
We're all sinners, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you. What would you say right now to a couple? They're laying in bed. They're watching this video. They're throwing up on their Apple TV, and they don't know how to pick a middle church between them and their spouse. What would you say to them?
Well, I do think it's important to just, as a pastor, I don't like when people walk in the church and they say we're shopping for a church, but it's a truth. It's a fact. People do shop. And, if you go to a pastor in Ahwatukee, most pastors will, if you go to any pastor and say, look, this is our situation, this is kind of our background, where do you think a good church would be for me? That's a good place to start, because the pastors in our community know the other churches. And there's people that walk in our church, and I can tell you within 2 minutes they're not going to fit. So why waste their time? But there's probably a good church that's a good fit, not only for the couple, but also for their kids. And maybe go talk to a pastor. Call me, and I can refer you to a good church that will meet your needs. And I think that's a great place to start. Just ask a pastor.
So I find this very interesting. I'm trying to think of our goal here is that, and it was this last election that made me realize the whole media is trying to get everyone on to focus on Trump and Hillary and Putin and Russia and North Korea, but it seems like everybody I know in Ahwatukee, pretty much all their problems are in Ahwatukee. They're in their home or within a mile of it. The husband won't quit drinking. The kid's on drugs. Their marriage is falling apart. They don't come in and say, "I'm worried about ISIS.
Right.
I'm worried about terrorism." Hell, in America, 30,000 people are killed in a car wreck. For every person that ever said they were afraid of terrorism in my practice, which has never happened.
Right.
Once a month, I hear my daughter got in a car wreck at
Sure.
48th and Ray. And she's hurt and injured. It's like you're more likely to die at the intersection of Ray Road and 48th Street if you live in Ahwatukee than by ISIS or Putin or North Korean missiles.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to bring it back home. But I noticed regarding religion, it seems like the success stories I've heard of the people that beat alcoholism, which, they're trying to tell you it's opioids and it's heroin, it's opiate.
Right.
Well, for every person you know on opioids, how many do you know are just bread and butter alcoholics that they sell at 20 locations in Ahwatukee?
Absolutely.
I mean, the three most abused drugs are cigarettes, alcohol, and sugar.
Absolutely.
And they sell that at every corner in Ahwatukee.
Absolutely.
I still don't know where you can find heroin or crack or in Ahwatukee. I mean,
Right.
I've never seen a crack dealer in Ahwatukee. But it seems like the people that beat alcoholism join AA.
Right.
And part of AA is that you have to admit there's a higher power.
Absolutely.
Do you see a connection between AA, religion, and beating substance abuse?
Absolutely. A lot of our churches in Ahwatukee have a ministry called Celebrate Recovery, and it's a very high, has success rate. There's another group called Teen Challenge that it's actually, you can't be a teenager to be in it, you have to be over 18, but they have a...
You can't be a teenager?
No, it's called Teen Challenge. I'm not sure why, but you have to be an adult to go into the program. But they have like an 86% success rate, and they've received awards from the White House through the years. But, I think all of us have a void in us. There's something there that we're trying to fill, that little void, just like we have a hole inside of us. And some fill it with work, some fill it with alcohol, some fill it with, making more money or whatever. And so it's a God-created vacuum. And so we fill it with something. And so obviously we're never fulfilled by drinking alcohol. I remember when I was young, and I was kind of in my rebellious state, and I always was looking for peace, and I was looking for purpose in my life. And so I would just go out on the weekends. I had a great job before I went to college and into the ministry, and I'd always come back empty. And the things of this world don't satisfy us. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going on a great vacation and having money and being successful. We want all those things. But when we fill that void with anything, it's just a God void. And we call the higher power. And God created that so that we would need Him and want Him. And so when people include God in their life, or they admit there is a higher power and they need His help and they ask for help, God's there for us. I just talked to a gentleman last night. He just got his 21-year pin from AA. And he is sold out for God. He loves the Lord. He helps other people in their recovery. But I don't know if that answers your question, but I know that God does. He gives us purpose. And he's the only individual that can fill that hole that's within all of us. I think He put it there for a purpose.
So many people always talk about, the addict, the alcoholic. How do you help the alcoholic? How do you fix that? But they don't talk enough about the wife married to the alcoholic.
Yeah.
I mean, she's suffering too. What would you say if there's a woman listening right now and she's 65 years old and she's on the Elliot Warner Loop, and her husband just puts away a half gallon of Smirnoff every day?
Well, more than likely she's an enabler, and more than likely, but that to that person who's living with that, they need to find help, and you can find help in AA. You can find help like at our church for a support group to help you go through this, because you need help. You can't do this on your own, because it's no fun living with an addict.
So
They need a support group just like the addict does.
Exactly.
Right. And they're all over.
So if she went to generationaz.org, that's your website, generationaz.org, would she would find...
It would be Celebrate Recovery, I'm pretty sure, on there somewhere. There's this
Generation 101, join a life group, church life, kids.
I'm hoping it's on there. We didn't
counseling.
check. Come on.
Generation Youth, Compassion Sunday, local initiatives, young adults, kingdom builders,
there you
Celebrate
go.
Recovery. You were starting to get nervous.
I was getting really.
He's like,
it shouldn't
he's
be
like,
at the bottom. It should be at the
please
top.
don't tell me.
And we meet here on Fridays. They have like a dinner. It's like $3 a person. So like a senior citizen could come, have a nice little dinner for $3 at, I think it's 6 o'clock. With
6
other
p.m.
people.
on Sunday?
6 p.m. on Friday nights.
On Friday nights?
That's where addicts need to be on Friday night, to Celebrate Recovery, right?
I thought they were all at Brad's place.
Well, hopefully not.
By Safeway.
Or the other one at the corner.
What's the what's the other one? Cactus Jacks.
There you go.
Cactus Jacks. They've been there. They've been there forever.
Very successful, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think it's under about the third ownership over
okay.
there.
So 6 o'clock they have a dinner, and then they have like a little church service where they maybe sing a couple songs, but they share testimonies and a teaching, life stories of people who are overcoming, and then they have a teaching, and then they break up into small groups, and then that's kind of what it is. Then they have food, so they have food again. They have dessert time. That's every Friday night, and we have this in Mesa at Tuesdays at 6 o'clock, and then in Ahwatukee on Friday nights. And it's out of Rick Warren's church. Ever hear Rick Warren? He wrote The Purpose-Driven Life. It's a huge mega church in California, and this Celebrate Recovery is in thousands of churches around the world. It's really a cool place to go if you have issues.
So Friday night,
it's for people with hurts,
With what?
hurts,
what's hurts?
hurts, H-U-R-T, like a hurt,
Yeah.
hurts, hang up and habits.
Oh, I see. Hurts
Yeah,
is for
if you've been hurt,
is for hang-ups.
It's for people
What's
who
the
have
H for?
hurts, H-U-R-T-S, habits, and hang-ups.
Hurts, habits, and
Yeah,
hang-ups.
Yeah.
Ryan, do I have any hurts, habits, or hang-ups? Any that we can discuss on Ahwatukee Uncensored?
Anybody and everyone's welcome. We don't pressure anyone to come to church or anything, but and then they have these called step studies where you actually work the steps with a group of people, and you write your story out and all that kind of
So
stuff.
I want to go back to one of the first comments you said. You said when people come in and they said they're shopping for a church,
Right.
that you can tell out of the gate if they're going to be a fit for your church,
Pretty
or
much.
if you need to give them a referral to someone else. So who's a fit for your church? What is your culture like? What is your tribe like? Where you're a good fit?
We really cater to people who are non-religious. Okay.
Wow, I was not expecting.
Non-religious, honestly.
That would have been the last answer I expected you to say.
The person who is searching for hope and answers, and that are not self-righteous and
Judgmental.
legalistic, but yet we believe that anyone and everyone can walk in our doors and they can belong even before they believe. Okay?
Even before they believe. So it's a church even for non-believers.
Well, for a season. We're trying to get, but you know what I'm saying? You don't have to, it's not like we have a church that's here in somewhere and there's like 8 steps to the front door. Step 1, step 2, step 3, we want anyone and everyone to be able to walk in, and we try not to be churchy. But we do teach the Bible, and we do believe that God changes lives and makes our lives better when He's in the center of our life. But we're not judgmental. we are very accepting, and yet we would be classified as a conservative, church. But we believe that we're not saved or made right with God through anything we do. It's not by our works. That's called legalism. It's our man's attempt to get right with God, what I can do and what I have to stop doing. But we believe that we're made right with God through what Jesus did for us 2,000 years ago. And when we ask him into our life, he changes us. And for me, the things I used to hate, going to church, all this, slowly I began to like those things and love them. And the things I used to love, getting fallen down, drunk and all this, I began to hate. But I didn't have to change to be accepted. So we just say, come as you are.
So you're 62. The boomers were born 45 to 64. Do you think the next generation, the millennials born after 19? To me, it seems like the boomers were more ritualistic. These are the rules. The Bible said this, that, more structural. And it seems like so many of the millennials are like more like, I believe there's something obviously greater than me.
Right.
I believe, I don't believe all this fell out of a Big Bang explosion, right. But I don't necessarily know what the guy's name was, and he says I can't eat shellfish,
right.
And do you think the millennials are different than the baby boomers? That's my question.
Well,
is religion changing in Ahwatukee?
They are definitely different, and in every area, but probably more than any generation, millennials were influenced by relativism, where my truth may not be your truth, and your truth is not the next guy's truth. This is what they've been brought up with. It's that truth is relative to situations and circumstances, historical context, all this stuff, and that black isn't really black and white isn't really white, and all of these things, morals, everything. But I do believe that at the root of it, people are searching for truth, and young millennials are searching for truth. And that's why it's really cool where we see we're affiliated with a group called the Assemblies of God. It's a worldwide church. It's like an evangelical church, recognized. Billy Graham could come to our church and he would be welcome. He would feel comfortable. And we have like 70 million people worldwide that attend Assembly of God Church, and yet
is it considered a non-denominational, or is that a denomination?
It's considered non-denominational. We call ourselves a cooperative fellowship. It's really not a denomination, but sometimes it feels like one. But we're our churches. We own our own property. We determine our own destiny. We hire our own pastor. So we are and we're not.
You're affiliated, but you're not.
They don't run
subservient.
that. Yeah, they don't.
There's not an org chart.
Right. So, but
like a co-op.
Right. So it's franchise.
Franchise.
And the fee's very small. It's like, and I call it a franchise fee, and I think they require that we give them $250 a year to have the name on our church. So it's pretty cool.
The Assembly of God name.
Assembly of God, yeah.
Nice.
And it gives us accountability. And we also have a lot of work that we can be a part of. But back to your question is, I believe the statistic is that 54% of the members of the Assembly of God Church are like under 30. So we're actually
54% are under 30.
Yeah. So really, we're meeting a need. But I think back to the truth thing, people want truth, and so we present the Bible as truth. Okay. And Jesus said that he was the way, the truth, and the life. And so we teach that only God, who's our creator, has the authority and the right to determine what truth is. And we see his truth is in the Word, the Bible, not in mankind. You know what I'm saying? And so the young people, when you present truth in that light, they do respond. Not everyone, but I think truth is what you're getting, what people are searching for. What is truth?
So, is it a fit for your church? Okay,
I would hope so.
I know these people. I've lived here 3 decades, raised 4 kids here. There's a lot of people who say, I know is this guy a 50 church? I know there's something greater out there. I'm just not sure that Paul knows his name.
Right.
Is he a 50-year church?
Absolutely. I think so. And we would, obviously, we don't think there's many truths, there's many names, there's only one. And we're going to just love you in such a way, love you into the truth, not beat you over the head with a 2x4, but just even show through our example, our lifestyle, our example, our love, that that the God of the Bible is true. And how we package that on a Sunday morning is you come in and it's like it's not churchy. We have all these lights going, we have haze in the sanctuary. It's kind of like a concert. It's really loud, it's really rocky, but there's substance to what we're doing and singing. And we have a short talk and we call a sermon, and service is about an hour long, and lives are being changed. It's amazing.
Are they a 50-year church if they're a horrible singer?
Yes.
you don't have any bad voices?
And when I say it's really young oriented, we also have a chapel service for older people or people who like it softer. We sing more traditional hymns, and we don't have all the lights and all of the bells and whistles. So if you don't like one style, we have multi-styles.
And what time are your services?
Our chapel service is 8:30. Our
8:30 a.m. on Sunday?
8:30 a.m., and that's in our first building. It says chapel. And then we have a 9:30 and 11 o'clock. I would love to tell the story of how we started the church a little bit, if you don't mind.
Please.
And I think it's a story of faith. It's a story of just persistence. When we moved here, my daughter Amy, who went to Lomas, and she went to Centennial, Mountain Point. She was the president of the choir at Mountain Point. She started at Lomas. She was in kindergarten when we moved here. And my other son, Tim Lavino, was 3 years old. We moved from Northwest Illinois. We were in a little town pastoring a little church. And I really felt a call, a burden, or whatever you want to call it, to move to Arizona. And when that all came to place, our Sons of God wanted to start a church in Ahwatukee. And so this was my pay package, okay? They said, if you move here, we'll pay rent on a house or a apartment for 3 months. You move they paid our moving expenses, thankfully. And so we moved here, and that was our pay package. 3 months. They said, if you come here, there was no people, there was no building, there wasn't a hymnal, there wasn't a microphone, there wasn't anything. You move here, we'll pay your rent for 3 months, and if you get a part-time job, you'll probably make it. And so within 6 weeks, we had our first service. I got a job driving a school bus for Kyrene and I did that for 7 years. And we bought that property. We built our first building. We built an addition.
You started in Grace Inn, though.
Yeah, we started at Grace Inn, and then within 5 months, we bought that property.
So when you went to Grace Inn, did you pay money to rent it?
Yes, we paid money to rent it. I had
their
raised
conference room.
Right.
They had a couple conference rooms.
Yeah, we had a little conference room. It cost us like $200. I had contacted friends and family and said, hey, we feel a call to plant a church in Arizona, and we can't go. I said, without money, we can't go, and without prayer, there's no reason to go. So please pray for us, and would you consider supporting us? My goal was to raise $10,000. So I raised $10,000 from friends and family. And the first day I drove into Ahwatukee, I went to the bank, which at 48th and Elliot, which was Valley National Bank. I deposited the $10,000, and we started a checking account.
And what was that lady's name? What was that lady's name who was there for 25 years?
I do not remember.
Oh my gosh, what was her name? And she just passed away a couple months ago. It was Valley National Bank. Then it turned into what? Nations Bank?
It was Valley National. Then it was. Before Chase, it was something else. I can't remember what it was.
Was it Nations?
I don't know if it was.
Or National Bank? There's something.
It's been 3. And then, so we were at the Grace Inn for like 2 months, and then the wintertime came, and so they had a lot of functions. So we moved over to Lomas, to the elementary school at Lomas. And then within 3 or 4 months, we bought that property, and then within 3 years, we built our first building.
I just found out, was her name Bernie?
I don't remember.
Huh. Amazing. So when you got here in 91, you said Ahwatukee had 20,000 people.
I believe it's 20,000 people.
And how many do you think it has right now in 2017?
85,000.
85,000. So you sound solid on that number. You guys, did you find some demographics or
I've heard that for a long time.
was it Google? And I found another stat. Check this out. The guy who owns the burrito company, Tom, he was born in he was born in 1946, but in 1940 when he was born, the population of Phoenix was 65,414.
Wow.
And today it's 1.6 million.
That's crazy.
And Ahwatukee was 20,000 when you got here, and now 26 years later, it's 85,000.
Right.
Do you think it's all built out, or do you think it'll?
There's probably a little bit more to go.
How big do you think it'll get?
100.
100.
That's my guess.
So you only were at Grace Inn for 5 months?
But only there for 2 months, and then because they had banquets and functions as winter came, then we moved to the Lomas.
The school,
Right.
The elementary school.
Right. And
What does Lomas mean?
Lomas, Kyrene de las Lomas? I have no idea.
No, Ryan, can you find out what Kyrene de las
Lomas means a lot of work if you're a student. Yeah, we've gone through like maybe 7 principals, and we've always had a great relationship with Lomas. One of the principals, when she introduced me like to the mayor or to other people in our community, she said, "This is Pastor Paul from," at the time we were called Ahwatukee Assembly of God. And she said, and they're partnering with us. And we always have partnered with them. We've had after-school programs. You remember the first school there? They tore it down.
Yeah. Why was that?
It didn't meet the district standards for safety, mostly. So,
Yeah.
because it was not enclosed, and there was every door it had.
What's funny is when I opened up 30 years ago, I cannot tell you how many of my patients had children in that school.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're coming in, and they have children in that school.
I know, it's crazy.
Is that just and there's
it's
so
really
many
neat.
places I'll be talking to this kid and I'll say, "Wow, they carry in their children in the car seat and set it next down in the chair," and I say, "Do you realize it seems like yesterday, and your mom was carrying you in the exact same car seat and sat you in the same spot?"
And I've had the joy and the privilege of the same thing. Like we're dedicating little babies of children that grew up in our church, and marrying, we're getting to the point where we're almost marrying some grandkids. So it's cool. Now, is your office right across the street from Lutheran Church here? Is that where?
Right.
Yeah.
Right between
There's a little merry-go-round in front or something.
Right, a little merry-go-round there, and
cool.
it's and Pastor Don Pastor Don back in the day, that church, they really appreciated me because I've always gone to bat for them because the people that own the Safeway Center
With the parking issue.
but there was no parking, must be a story deal, and I told them, I said, well, there's no one here on a Sunday.
Right.
Quit putting those signs up. And I shouldn't say this, but they put the signs up, but anyway, the signs would disappear. and the property management people asked me several times to go, why are you telling me you can park there? And I said, well, first of all, I own my land and bill. I bought that.
I was going to
pad.
ask you that if you.
And it cost me $275,000 a long time ago, when
Right.
$275,000 cost
A lot of money.
twice as much as it does now. And I said, they can park here. What
Right.
I said, what kind of sociopath
Right.
would tell the community church they can't park in your parking lot on a Sunday morning when it's
Right.
empty?
Right.
I mean, are you not right in the
Yeah,
head?
the only thing that
and
was
they
really
go
open
back to the
was
deal.
Safeway.
Well, here's the
Yeah.
what is it, the CC&Rs?
Right.
I said, well, I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
These are people. I mean, it's just
Craziness.
people are just and they do that in religion too.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many arguments I've seen in my life within my own family, and they start quoting the Bible. Well, they'll find a quote. The Bible says this, and then find another quote. The Bible said that.
Okay.
Well, what do you say to people sitting at a table having a Bible quoting war? Come on, you've had to have heard this before. I can't be the first person to tell you this happens.
I don't know. I'd have to be more. I'd have to just know what they're doing. I would probably just say, well, this is what I would probably say. This is what it says, and this is what it means. I would be the authority.
Because you're a pastor.
I would do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
let me say this: when people are talking politics, or one of the big deals where like homeschoolers, we used to have time when there was homeschool parents and Christian school parents and public school, and they're all like debating, all feeling like there's. I say, look, there's no one way. For some people, Christian school is the option. They should do that. You shouldn't judge them. And for others, homeschool. There may be a few people that homeschool really is the best option for them. So stop judging them. And public school for some, like homeschoolers judge public school parents, and public school parents kind of, So I think in that case, in like even with politics, I tell people when we're having table, there's people in our church that assume that in our church is Republican. Well, they're not. And so I say, this is not the place for politics. And if I don't get into politics at all in church. And I don't think God is a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah.
So I'm a peacekeeper. That's what I'm going to do on the table.
Let's go to another big issue, marriages. Half of them fail here in Ahwatukee.
Yep.
There's probably many couples listening to you right now. What are your thoughts? What does Generation Church do? What are your thoughts on trying to hold a marriage?
Well, first of all,
and a follow-up question. Some people wonder, should I go to a marriage counselor, or should me and my husband who are struggling go to church? What would you say to that one?
Probably both. Our church, we do provide a lot of marriage helps, because I think marriage is something that God ordained, God planned. He's the one who thought of marriage. It's a very difficult situation for a lot of people. I think whoever said, once you get married, you live happily after ever, I think they lied to us, because what marriage really is the collision of two histories. And it's not an easy thing, but
the marriage is a collision.
It's a collision of two histories. It's not. You don't get married and live happily after ever. It's a collision of two histories.
I asked that. Anyway, lost your.
It's a collision.
that is well put, and I've never heard that in a million years.
It's
and
original.
Marriage,
it's original. But let me tell you this. So and another thing that I found in my own relation, I've been married to I have one wife, 4 kids, no dogs. One wife, 36 years. But what I've found is that opposites attract. They really do. And then when they get married, they attack.
This is very original.
It's very true.
A marriage is a collision of two cultures.
Two histories.
Of two histories.
Marriage is
Will you write that down and text it to me, Ryan?
It's the collision of two histories.
Marriage is the collision of two histories. Opposites attract.
And then when they get
married,
they attack.
They attack.
Yeah.
That's pretty profound.
Thank you, sir.
Is that your original stuff?
That's my life.
Well, you should get a guitar and make that a country western song.
But this is the deal. We're so different, but I really do truly believe that when a couple, when they stop attacking and they stop to think, okay, so you're good with strangers and I'm not good with strangers. So if there was two of us, both in the same, we both weren't social, or we didn't like, strange to meet new people, we'd be kind of odd. But one of us, and I'm just one illustration, but one of us is strong where the other is weak. So we complement. And so what we think is when we're married, that the other person has to become like us. And if we keep trying to change that person and make them like us, it's going to be a really odd relationship. So when we don't compete anymore, okay, we're not competing. My way's the best way. You need to be like me. And we stop competing, and we come to the understanding that our differences complete us. We're completed. We're better because the other person is different. They're strong where I'm weak where they're strong. So unless your marriage is 1 in 18 billion, you're going to have issues. And so what's neat about going to a church like ours, and there's many churches in Ahwatukee that offer classes and conferences and teaching, and we even have crisis. We have a couple in our church that's been trained. They're not a PhD in counseling, but they've been trained in crisis counseling. And it's couple to couple. So if you're just having just a knock down, drag out, people can call and set up appointment. And there's people who want to just have they're just in a horrible situation. They walk out holding hands and hugging. And so we have crisis counseling, we have classes, we have conferences, we have retreats. And so the church should be about families, helping families. So a lot of our sermons are about how to have a better marriage, how to forgive. A lot of marriages issues is about forgiveness. We don't want to forgive the other person. And we can learn to forgive, we'll be a lot happier.
So you've been doing this for 26 years.
Yes.
Do you believe the old adage that you always read that people just throw around, that marriage is divorced for 3 reasons: a third over money, a third over sex, and a third over substance abuse? Do you think that's true, or is that oversimplistic, or is there any truth to that?
No, there's very true. A lot of it has to do with money. Money and infidelity. Yes, those are all true. Alcohol.
So a third money, a
Absolutely.
third substance abuse, and that's
Absolutely.
and when you in your 26 years here, when you think about substance abuse, what percent of that would be alcohol versus break it down percentage?
Well, it's hard to say because, like as we were talking earlier, alcohol is so acceptable in our society, and I don't know the statistics, but I would have to say, in my generation, it's definitely more prevalent than drugs. Yeah, alcohol.
Like what would you guess?
I would say 80%.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm trying to get. Real world is, again, the media. Focus on North Korea and Putin and terrorism and ISIS and all that, but this is about Ahwatukee, and in Ahwatukee, it's probably 80-85% alcohol. But the newspapers try and tell you it's all these, it's cooking meth in your house. Well,
right.
I mean, those are issues, and they're very real and they're very important. I'm not taking anything away from them, but I do think it's so bizarre how it seems like I know so many families where someone in that family is really causing a lot of noise and destruction over alcohol. Yet I watched the Arizona Cardinals game, and it's just beer commercial, beer commercial, beer commercial. I don't know where you can go into Ahwatukee, 7-Eleven, Circle K, Safeway, Fry's. I mean, it's sold on every corner, and it's like, why are you so wanting more police to arrest somebody doing opioids?
Right, or smoking a joint.
I mean, that's a good point I'm trying to make. Like you want all this more police force to arrest more bad guys doing opioids, while most of the families destroyed by substance use could buy it in 50 locations in Ahwatukee.
Absolutely, yeah.
Something's wrong with that picture. And I'm not proposing a solution. I'm just saying
it's a reality.
It's almost like almost things back to judgmental. Like, well, we want to beat up those guys doing those other drugs because we're all drunk.
Right.
It's like, well, have you ever thought about maybe the guy over there on the opioid addiction isn't nearly as dysfunctional as your dad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting that the Bible says that drunkenness is a sin. And you know why God hates sin?
Why?
Because of what it does to us. And so, you can delete that if you want, but it's the truth.
No, I'm not going to delete anything.
No, it's what it does to us, what it does to families. That's why, he hates sin, because of what it does to us. It destroys families. It destroys futures. It puts, drunken drivers kill innocent people. It's really a shame. And it's all driven in our society by money. People want to make money.
So I'm trying to think of the issues. Another big issue I was here chairside so many times is causing a lot of stress. Their child was perfect. Mm-hmm. When they were 15, they almost thought, I should write a book on how to raise children because my children are perfect. And they had 3 kids, 2 of them perfect, but the third one, the day she got her car keys, now she's just a hot mess.
Yep.
And it's caused so much. What would you be saying to a couple watching right now that has a hot mess teenager on their hand?
Welcome to my world. Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. One of my third son is caused so much pain and grief. I jokingly say he taught me how to pray. I think when I was younger and I saw some families who maybe had a problem child, I was judgmental. You know, they must have done something wrong. But you know, in our case, we have 4 children, and at least one of them is really kind of messed up, and you can't beat yourself up over it, but you need to get help. And I think when you start seeing issues with a child, and I wish we would have done this sooner, is to try to get help, try to get counseling, try to don't ignore it, don't defend, don't kind of hide, issues, don't, if the school is saying stuff, don't get mad at the school, and because most of the time we just want to deny there's issues, and the sooner we can get help, the better. I remember one time when our son was 14, I was flying home from vacation, and I happened to be sitting next to, I think it was a Maricopa County Sheriff, and he said, if he starts getting to the point where he's in the system or gets arrested, don't fight it. Don't try to get him off. Just let the process work, because that's really the best thing for him. And so, don't be ashamed. Don't hide it. Believe, that change can happen, and it's a real thing. It's a real struggle.
So,
even pastors.
and society's already proven that the parents shouldn't feel judgmental, that it's their fault. I mean, even when their kids go out and do mass shootings,
absolutely,
you don't see the judge come knocking on your door and say, "Hey, did you two raise this kid that went and shot half a dozen kids?" I mean, society's kind of well established that there's no history of what's going after mom and dad. You can blame your mom and dad when you're 8, but not at 28.
Right. There is,
or would you say 18?
Yes. Whatever, I don't know.
Would you say you can blame your mom and dad when you're 8, but not at 18?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 18, you're old enough to be drafted to Vietnam, World War II, World War One.
Right.
So
now there is a big drug problem in Ahwatukee, that's for sure.
Well, I'm glad you said it, because they're led to believe that all the drugs are out in Apache Junction. Meth is in Apache Junction, and all the drugs are on an avenue or a street in Phoenix, but not here in pristine little Ahwatukee.
No, it's here. It's here.
Well, you know what my police officer patients say to me? They go, "Look, the poor kids can't afford the drugs. Mm-hmm. It's the rich kid stealing $30 out of her mom's purse every day, and who had the car bought for her, and everything's paid."
Right, and the smart ones are not smart, but the ones who, even in quote, the rich kids, they're out selling it because they have that entrepreneur spirit. And I've known a lot of kids that live in this community who are big drug pushers. Now,
when you say drugs, Ahwatukee just opened, I think last year, a medical marijuana dispensary. What's that called? It's right by Grace Inn.
Yep.
Sun
something, or
Ryan, do you know the name of that? Sunflower? When you say drug, does that include marijuana, or when you say it's a big drug problem? Well, first of all, what did you think of the marijuana medical dispensary coming to Sunflower? Because I've seen signs in other locations where they're trying to get a permit approved.
Right.
But it seems like the signs come and go.
Right.
But I'm only aware of one dispensary. But what did you think of that when that came to Ahwatukee?
I didn't really have an issue with it, honestly. I do believe that it can help people. I'm not an expert on it. I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah. So when you say there's a lot of drugs in Ahwatukee, did that include alcohol, marijuana, or are we talking about other stuff? What did the word drugs mean?
Well, to me, I know there is a lot of heroin and I'm just familiar with a lot of heroin.
So you're familiar with heroin?
Yeah. Of kids using it, yes. I know kids who have. A lot of kids.
Yeah.
And one kid who is very well known in our community, I was fortunate to take him to a treatment center, him and his mom, to Tucson, and he's doing phenomenal today. So there's hope for anyone who's addicted to drugs.
Yeah, and the one thing I think is sad is, you go back a long time ago, a lot of people thought, well, government's inefficient, so we should have private prisons. So they opened up a lot of private Florence has 9 prisons or whatever. Yeah. So they opened up all these private prisons. But you know what I saw happen? I saw that, who they were, their master was Wall Street. and they wanted to return the most profit. So what did they cut back on? Drug counseling, getting them their GED.
Right.
So this horrible government-ran jails, well, they were doing AA meetings and drug counseling, and kids were getting their diploma. Now these private, where Free Enterprise does everything better, kids in there 4 years and never had drug treatment, and he's in there for drugs.
Yes.
Does that even make sense?
It makes no sense at all.
It seems like if you're really rich, you get to go to a nice treatment facility and get fixed.
Right.
And if you're really poor, you're going to go to be put in a cage like an animal and not get help. Do you agree with that, or disagree?
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it seems like even the whole thing is money based. I mean, in our society, I mean, you have a drug problem, so you have to get an attorney, and you got to pay all these fines, but what they really need is help.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
when you get a DUI, like you're already might be drinking for all kinds of problems. So is a $10,000 DUI
Yeah,
gonna help you not drink anymore?
I agree with you.
Yeah, so it's people. It's but since you mentioned money, you said earlier marriage, money, infidelity, substance abuse, money. What would you say to a couple who's listening right now and they're always fighting over money? I mean, I can remember as a little kid. I mean, when I was really little, mom, dad sitting at the table, all hell breaking loose. When they were paying the bills.
Right.
It was like when you saw mom and dad paying the bills, like you want to go outside and play. Because it could get crazy in there.
Yeah, well, the facts are most couples don't have money problems. They have spending problems. And so, obviously today with credit cards, you can really have a spending problem big time. And again, a lot of people use the credit card to fill that little void in their heart. I got to go have this fix, So we have money problem. We don't have money problems. We have spending problems. So I mean, the only thing I can give advice to, and I give advice to a lot of families, is they've got listen to Dave Ramsey. He's really good on helping families get their issues
Ryan,
together.
send me a Dave Ramsey text.
Yeah.
Dave
You ever heard of him?
Ramsey. Yeah, I have heard of him.
He's phenomenal on money. He's got great strategies, and one of the things that he teaches, and we offer, it's called financial peace. It's
Your church does?
Yeah.
Generation Church.
Yeah, financial peace, where you can come in, and it's like an 8-week thing.
At your church.
At Generation Church. We have had it before, but right now it's in the Mesa campus, but we will have it here. Where they come for 8 weeks, and they
It's
work
called
on
what?
their Financial Peace University.
Nice. And they don't
Dave
have a
Ramsey.
money problem. It's true, they have a spending problem.
Spending problem. So what we try to advocate is that people, you may have to, it's a long story, but you have to, first thing you have to do is you have to, set up an emergency fund, because, people who, it's like your tire wears out or breaks. That's not an emergency. That's a reality. Those things happen. So you have to start, for people that don't have a lot of money, you have to have at least $1,500 saved away for the next time the car breaks down or you need a tire. And then you have to start reducing your debt, and this university tells you how to reduce credit card debt. And then you want to get to a place where you're living on 80% of your income, not 107% or 112%. And we encourage people to live on 80%, save 10%, and give 10%. So we encourage that you give 10% to the church. We don't mandate it. We encourage it, and pay yourself 10%, and then pay your bills.
You mentioned you'd only been to a casino once. I can leave my house when I go on a bike ride.
Right.
I like to ride my bike either around South Mountain, which is 45 miles, or to go to Maricopa and back. And when I go down, when I leave my house,
Not your push pedal bike.
no push pedal bike.
45 miles.
Yeah, and it takes me about 2.5 hours.
That's amazing.
I bike about 18. I average about 18, 19 miles an hour.
Nice.
But when I go down there, it's exactly 6 miles from my house. I go by that casino. So you and I both lived here for over a decade without a casino.
Right.
The casino opened up. Just same question, like they opened the new marijuana dispensary. What did you think when the casino opened?
I don't think. To me, I expect those things to happen. It's not like there's nothing I can do to stop it, and it's not like I didn't have a thought, but I will say that I've heard way more horror stories from the casino than the marijuana dispensary. You know, I know people have come in and said, my husband's got an issue and we lost our house.
It wasn't even open a month, and I had the first patient cry, and I said, well, you know, it'll be this much, your insurance will pay half your portion this month. And she just busts out bawling, and she goes, my husband's maxed out all of her credit. I'm broke from the casino.
I know.
So it's one of those things where
Sad.
it's entertainment for the vast majority,
Right.
but it can be a serious addiction for someone.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So, gosh, that was the fastest hour in the world. I can't believe we went over. We're at an hour and
There you
3. Before we started, you didn't. I don't think you thought, what are we going to talk about for an hour? Final issue. I can't believe we've been here an hour. You want to talk about your food pantry?
Who would think that in Ahwatukee you would need a food pantry, right? But we had a gentleman probably 12, 15 years ago who used to run one in the inner city, and they moved out here, and he had a passion for that. So we started by just collecting a little bit of food now and then, and someone would come to the church, we'd have some food. Well, it's grown now where we're agent part of St. Mary's Food Pantry. We pick up food and people in the community don't know this, but we pick up food at both Safeways, Trader Joe's, Target, and Fry's 6 days a week. All of their perishables. And
What is a perishable?
meat, eggs, fruit, the good stuff. Anything that's not canned. Bread is perishable. So our food pantry is open every Tuesday at 11, every Thursday at 11, and Saturday. And last year we gave out 750 pounds of food.
And who picks this food up?
We do.
No, but who comes to your pantry and picks it up? Or do you take it to St. Mary's Food Pantry?
People come to us, and they line up at the church. And
How do they find out about it?
well, it's in all the local churches know about it. So if the people from their church, you know, maybe somebody finds out, someone comes to them and says, "Hey, we need food, we need help." Well, they refer them to us. So that's one way. Another way is word of mouth. But what we have loved to do, and my passion as a pastor, is that family in Ahwatukee that suddenly finds themselves unemployed or underemployed or going through divorce, and this isn't their lifestyle, but they just have fallen on hard times. They hear about us, we give them, you know, $100, $200, $300 worth of food the first week, and a lot of these gentlemen, if they're looking for work, or the women, they'll start volunteering because it just helps them and they give back. But it's phenomenal. We have a troop. You've probably seen the truck. It says Generation Food Pantry. We pick up food
From the two Safeways
two Safeways.
on 48th and LA.
We pick up at the one in the foothills. They're on Chandler and Marketplace.
Right.
The one at Chandler and 40th Street.
Yeah.
And then the Trader Joe's.
And where's Trader Joe's?
Trader Joe's is right next to Safeway there on Chandler and 40th
Right.
Street. We pick up at Target and Fry's. For some reason, I think this store,
The Safeway store over here.
we don't do this one.
But why is that?
I'm not sure. But we give people steak and hamburger and ham and chicken, and it's amazing.
And last year you gave away
750,000 pounds.
You said 750 pounds.
No, 750,000 pounds.
Holy! When you said 750
Yeah.
pounds, I'm like,
Yeah, 750,000 pounds.
wow, 750,000
And we have like
pounds.
20 or 30 volunteers that work every single day, or Tuesday,
Good
Thursday.
for you.
It's amazing.
And see, these are the stories that need to be covered, not Putin.
Some of the other churches, like the Chandler Christian over there at 48th and Chandler, they just brought us probably 5,000 pounds of perishables, non-perishables. They had a food can drive, because some of the other churches help us with the non-perishables. So they've helped us. Some of the Catholic churches bring food once in a while. The Lutheran Church, they always bring money. So it's kind of like a cooperative, and we house we have the facility there. We have a lot of volunteers from other churches and from the community. It's really pretty cool.
And this is what we call, Ahwatukee has 1,000 points of life. It's a tight community. We're locked in between South Mountain, the Indian Reservation, I-10. There's only 4 ways in and out of this place. It's the Elliot Warner Loop, and it's the Ray Chandler Loop. And what my goal is to get on the pillars of the community, people who help make this. I still remember the first day. It was May 12th of 87, getting off I-10 on Elliot, and I was get off, and I saw the South Mountain. I saw it. I said, okay, this is home.
Right.
And I loved it for 30 years, but it's because of guys like you. And if you're a pillar of the community, or you know someone is a pillar of the community, or you want to help make Ahwatukee stronger, email my son Ryan at Tukeetown.com. Email me Howard at Tukeetown.com. And a great shout out and thank you to Paul Lavino, Pastor Paul Lavino, for coming by today.
My pleasure.
And talking to people in Ahwatukee for an hour. Thank you so much for all that you've done for Ahwatukee.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. God bless.